reason, every time I think about the countdown, it starts at T minus 7 seconds. I don't know why. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Okay, JK, everybody, this is a Spaceship Freedom. Here we are above the Earth. Amazing ride uphill. We're very proud to be representing Axiom and our nations here. I couldn't be happier to be here and prouder of my guys. It's just a great job all the way uphill.
On behalf of the Expedition 70 crew, I'd like to welcome Axiom 3 on board the International Space Station.
Welcome aboard Axiom 3 station. We are now resuming operational audio communications.
I am very proud of my Ax-3 crewmates who helped their agencies achieve all of their science objectives, technology demonstrations, as well as the outreach events.
So what I really hope this experience as a family will bring to them, it's the self-confidence that nothing is really impossible. I want to be an example, and I want to be part of those that make something impossible possible.
This is not a mission of a single individual. This is not magnifying a name. This is just the ignition moment. This is not the end. This is just the beginning.
Hola, ciao, marhaba, and hello. From Axiom Space, I'm Alexis DeJarnette. I'm excited to be joined by the Axiom Mission 3 crew after their successful mission aboard the International Space Station. This talented and dedicated crew includes 4 individuals representing 5 nations. Starting with Commander Michael López-Alegría of the U.S. and Spain, MLA became the first astronaut to fly in SpaceX Dragon spacecraft for a second time. Then we have pilot Walter Villadei of the Italian Air Force. For Walter, this mission has been a whole-of-country effort to expand Italy's access to space for the purposes of research, development, and innovation. Next is mission specialist Alper Gezlevauci, the first Turkish astronaut. The Ax-3 mission helped mark the 100th anniversary of the Republic of Turkey. And finally, mission specialist Marcus Swan of Sweden and the European Space Agency blazed a trail as the first ever ESA project astronaut. The Ax-3 crew launched on January 18th from Kennedy Space Center, spending 18 days aboard the International Space Station, conducting 54 research activities and facilitating 28 media outreach events before returning to Earth on February 9th. In total, they flew 9.1 million miles and orbited the Earth 346 times. In just a moment, we will hear from our commander for opening remarks. And after we hear from the rest of the crew, we will take questions from the media. If you'd like to ask a question, please raise your hand and submit your question to the moderator using the chat function in case of any technical issues. When called on, we ask for you to state your name, affiliation, and to whom your question is directed. So welcome home, Ax-3, and I'll now pass it over to Commander LA.
Thanks, Alexis. You did a great job teeing up this conversation, and I really appreciate it. And welcome to all of the esteemed journalists from around the world. We really appreciate the interest that you're showing in this, what I think is a paradigm-shifting mission, which continues Axiom's efforts to expand access to low Earth orbit. I want to start by thanking the agencies of my colleagues who put their trust in Axiom and their confidence in this new way of doing business to send humans to low Earth orbit. So first from Italy, the Italian Air Force and the Ministry of Defense, and actually other ministries within the government. As Alexis said, it was a whole of government effort. In Turkey, TÜBİTAK Uzay, which is the Space Technologies Research Institute, as well as the Turkish Space Agency and its minister, and of course the Swedish National Space Agency, the government of Sweden, and ESA, who joined in this first ever effort to have an ESA astronaut fly on a commercial mission. So I want to do a quick recap of the mission. We launched on January 18th, as Alexis said, aboard the Freedom spacecraft after a one-day delay. The countdown was very smooth. Ascent was exhilarating. As always, 9 minutes later, we're in microgravity. We spent about 36 hours, what we call phasing. So we always launch in the same orbital plane as a space station, but it could be right overhead or it could be on the other side of the world. And in our case, it was on the other side, so it took us a while to get to the ISS. Once we got there, as you heard, we spent 18 days. I will tell you, they were busy. We were greeted, welcomed by the resident ISS crew, who was very gracious with their hospitality and sharing their knowledge of how to live and work in that very unique environment. Had a little bit of a delay coming home because the weather is tough. January, you can imagine, is not an easy month to launch in, but eventually we did a splashdown, as you saw in the video, with some very nice waters off of Daytona Beach. Spent a couple of hours on the recovery ship, and then a couple more hours doing some science collection based on experiments that we had done. They wanted to get some data right after landing. Flew back to Houston to be greeted by our families in a lovely reunion, which seemed almost surreal to be reunited that quickly after a mission. So I want to tell you just a couple of fun facts. While we were on board, 11 people, I heard 8 different languages spoken. So when you think about the international flavor, which is very much a hallmark of this mission, I think no statistic tells it better than that. Also, these gentlemen are number 609, 610, and 611th in the history of humanity to orbit the Earth, which is a pretty big milestone. And I'd like to add that they represent, with 9 new space flyers that Axiom has christened, more than any other company and more than any other space agency since we started flying private astronaut missions in 2022. So to sum up, I think the things that take away from this mission were, first of all, the important research in science and the technology demonstration that we did, the furtherance of this idea of expanding access to low Earth orbit to more countries, more research institutions and researchers, and ultimately more people. But finally, I want to leave you with one thing, and that is the number of young people that were touched by these 3 gentlemen in their home countries. These are people who, until recently, might not have ever been able to dream about someday going to space or being involved in the endeavor of human spaceflight, and now, thanks to them, they can. So I look forward to taking your questions. In the meantime, let me turn it over to Freedom Pilot, Colonel Walter Villadei of the Italian Air Force.
Thank you, Mike. Good morning, everyone. It's an honor and privilege to be here today with all of you. This mission has been a part of the national strategy in space, but it's worthwhile for many reasons. We were supposed to fly in 2023. That was the centennial of the Italian Air Force. And then we flew in 2024. That marks another important event for Italy. That is the 60 years of Italian space activities. And this long story started just thanks to the cooperation with the United States of America. So this proves how much important is the international cooperation. During this mission, mission, we have done lots of experiments. I'm very proud that the payloads we brought on board the ISS, they came from the scientific community, from the military community, and from the industrial community. That is one of the most important value for this mission. We really tested and proved a new model, trying to get together not only the institutions, but also the scientific community, military community, and industrial community. And that proves that space can really be a new stage for expanding the access to space. This is important not only for Italy, but for Europe as a whole, but for the entire international community. So I'm very proud that with my colleagues and thanks to this amazing mission, we prove that we can really foster and support this international cooperation. We reached out a lot of young people, so this is another important point to inspiring the young generations. They are the future astronauts, scientists that will bring us to Moon and then to Mars. So this is another important milestones that we achieved. And before handing over to my colleagues, I want to really thank the Axiom, SpaceX, NASA leadership, as long as with the Italian Air Force leadership that made this mission possible. So this has been an honor as an Italian astronaut to fly with these colleagues. And having said that, and waiting for your questions, I want to hand over to my colleagues and friend, Colonel Alper Ghisarauci.
Thanks so much, Walter. Welcome, everybody, to our press conference. I'm very honored and privileged to be the first ever Turkish astronaut to go to the space. I represented Turkey on this historic mission and had a chance to play a role in advancing my country's space exploration initiatives. Ax-3 mission put a remarkable footprint in our prideful new Turkish centennial and carried the limits of the future generation streams deep into the space. It gave me a privileged opportunity to be able to represent and serve my country at the furthermost, most advanced scientific platform of the humanity. It was an opportunity of a lifetime to represent Turkey on this historic mission, playing a role in advancing my country's space exploration initiatives. This mission helped to unify the Turkish people and their shared identity as citizens of Republic of Turkey, providing hope for my nation that was devastated by a natural disaster last year in this month, but never gave up on the hopes and solidarity. Ax-3 mission was symbolic as Turkey reflected on changes and progress made in the past 100 years. It inspired a sense of national pride, commemorated the achievements of the past century, and set a positive and ambitious tone for the future tied to the space exploration. Today, we are rebuilding and have moved forward to explore what had not been possible until now, enabling economic development, advancements in education and technology, and Turkey's role on the global stage, which is now in space. We accomplished so much during Ax-3, but this is just the beginning. This mission and accomplishment was not a destination for us. It was just the beginning of a journey. We brought our nation's agricultural endeavors to low Earth orbit, tested an artificial intelligence system to combat over 70 types of diseases, and helped advance best practices for astronaut care as part of Turkey's rapidly developing national space program. I would also like to express my deepest appreciation and sincere gratefulness to my Axiom 3 team members, Commander MLA, Walter, and Marcus, for such an amazing harmony they have created and maintained throughout the preparation and the execution of the mission. Also, special thanks to all of our friends in Axiom Space who have supported us in every single step. This mission has been a wonderful experience thanks to them. Now, it's time to look ahead, a vision for the future, Turkey in space, based on our galactic goals for the next Turkish century. Now I would like to hand over the words to my dear friend, ESA astronaut Lieutenant Colonel Marcus Vance from Sweden.
Thank you, Alper. Thanks a lot. Yeah, it's been a great experience to join this crew and go to space, and I'm so proud of representing Sweden and Europe and actually maybe humanity out there. As you heard mentioned earlier, not that many of us have been there yet, and I'm looking forward to a lot of more people getting up to space. And this is one way of making that happen. So I'm very proud of Sweden being decisive, and together with the European Space Agency and Axiom, making it possible to increase the frequency and the presence in space. And a little bit about the experience in space. So one of the highlights during we did a lot up there, but one of the highlights was to talk to children on ground and students and get all those fantastic questions, which are questions that I've had myself, and to be able to answer those questions and try out then and there how it worked if they asked a specific question, and just feeling that curiosity and that inspiration flow all the way from Earth up into space. That was a very big and strong feeling, and all the science and all the tech demos that we did, and the range the wide range of different things we did, that was for exploration of space, but also for the benefit of Earth, makes me very proud to be a part of that and privileged to be a part of that. And coming back to Earth and meeting people and talking to them and answering the small detailed questions about how is it to flow through the station, how is it to make a turn, how does it feel to sleep, and all those small observations and that big experience, to bring that back. And when you talk about it, and you can see the interest just firing up, and how people wants to be a part of learning and continue to do research and just continue to move our boundaries is very strong. And also to talk about how it is to look at Earth from space and space from space, and try to communicate how that feels and what perspective that gives is very, very strong. And I would love to see that happen to a lot more, and that makes me really proud to be a part of this and see that Sweden and Europe and globally we're moving forward and to know more and to just expand our world, which is great. With that, I'll hand it over to you, Alexis.
Thank you, Marcus, and thank you, Ax-3 crew. We'll now open the floor to reporter questions. If you have a question, please use the raise your hand feature and submit your questions in the chat. If you are joining on your phone, press *6 to unmute yourself when called on. Also, please say your name, affiliation, and to whom you would like to direct your question. All right, so shall we begin? All right, we will start with Elizabeth Howell.
This question is for Michael. And so I was listening to a NASA press conference recently over the weekend where they were saying that your crew's long ride on Crew Dragon allowed them and SpaceX to collect a lot of information about how Dragon behaves with the crew on board. And so can you speak to that, and also the experience of riding on a Dragon twice?
Well, first of all, thanks for the question, Elizabeth. It's obviously a privilege to ride on any spacecraft twice. And Dragon was certainly no different. It's true, we had a long time. I mentioned the 36 hours, as we say, uphill, so the time from launch to docking. And then we had 47 hours from undocking to splashdown. And those two numbers combined end up being the longest presence on Dragon of any crew so far. So, you might ask, what are we doing up there? It's funny, we had just spent 18 days aboard the space station doing all kinds of experiments and technology demonstrations, and yet there's still the wonder of being in space and microgravity and playing with food and seeing how water in the bottles would react in microgravity. And of course, the view out the window never gets old. So I think, the 47 hours, I'll admit, seemed pretty long at the beginning. And then before you knew it, it was over and the parachute's opening and splashdown. Wonderful experience. I would encourage anybody who would love to have that experience to do so, because it is truly unique and a real opportunity once in a lifetime, twice sometimes.
Thanks, LA. All right, we now have Marcia Melly.
Thanks to all of you for your time. I have a question for all of you. What was the most emotional moment you lived during this mission in space? Thanks.
Start with Marcus.
Yeah, there were several moments that was really emotional. But since you're asking for the most, I've been, reading and hearing about this overview effect and looking on Earth and what that does to you as an astronaut or as a human being. And I remember the first few days I looked outside and it was beautiful, and it just felt surreal. But after about 3 or 4 days, 4 or 5 days maybe, it started to become, all of a sudden actually, it became emotional when I floated down into the cupola and looked outside, and for some reason I just got stuck there, and that was really interesting. I did not expect that, and I did not see that coming at that point, but then that feeling stayed with me throughout the mission, actually, going down and looking outside and seeing space and Earth at the same time, and that thin atmosphere. That was very strong.
Does anyone else have anything they would like to add?
Well, definitely, Marcus mentioned the cupola. One of the most emotional moment was over during the first day in one of our 16 orbits. So we had the opportunity to fly over Italy, through directly from the north to the south, and it was night, so having the opportunity to really see Italy from space and all the lights and all the different cities was very, very emotional. And actually, it was one of the few days where it was a clear sky, pure and very easy to look at. And I would say that the second very emotional moment was the takeoff. As soon as the countdown went to 0, and of course, we've been in training for so long, so in our mind, we have a mental model very precise, or whatever is going to happen in a second, but then feel all the vibration and then lifting up, that was really emotional. So.
Well, thank you. All right, well, now we'll move on to Javier Gregory.
Okay, Javier, I see the question, and I'm not sure if the folks online can see it. I'll repeat it. Javier is a Spanish journalist from Spanish radio, would like to ask me how Spain is seen from space because suffering from a long drought, and how he sees the return of the astronauts to the moon after the failure of the first lander sent to the South Pole by Japan and the United States. He would like the answer to be in Spanish. So let me answer it in English first. Interestingly, so I really focused on trying to get some photography of Spain. And as Walter mentioned, the weather wasn't great all the time, but we had some nice passes. And I remember from previous flights that I had said to folks that I could see the entire expanse of the Iberian Peninsula in one, basically just looking out the window. And that's definitely true. I have some pictures to prove it now. Interestingly, my sense was that it was greener than I remember it in previous times. And I think, Javier, you may have asked me this very question on previous occasions, and because it seems like Spain is in a drought quite often. But it seemed greener to me. And a final comment on the moon landing, I think everybody is aware of the Intuitive Machines Odysseus landing, which was successful in the South Pole. And, of course, a very important milestone toward humans landing there in the not-too-distant future. Ahora en español. Primero, Javier, un placer saludarte. Mira, había dicho antes que podía ver toda la península ibérica desde la ventana de la escotilla de la estación, y ahora puedo confirmar que es cierto que he tomado bastantes fotografías que han salido bastante bien, y la impresión que tenía es que la península estaba más verde que antes. Y sé que me habías preguntado esta pregunta en otras ocasiones, después de otras misiones, y mi impresión es que era más, aunque haya sequía ahora, igual había sequía antes. Parece que España sufre mucho de sequía y estaba un poco más verde en esta ocasión. Y en cuanto a la Luna, pues todos sabemos que ha aterrizado en el Polo Sur últimamente la máquina, la nave de Intuitive Machines. Y yo creo que es un paso súper importante para la llegada de los humanos, los seres humanos, que de verdad estamos volviendo a la Luna, y eso es muy importante.
Thank you,
I'm
Alec.
finished.
Thank you. All right, we're now going to call on Jonathan Seri.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for doing this. Jonathan Seri with Fox News, and really any of the crew members could answer this, anyone who wants to take this. As you contribute to the study of the effects of space flight on the human body, what would you say are the areas that need the most further study, the most unanswered questions?
It's difficult to say. Actually, now I still waiting for the results. We've been collecting the data, still doing scans. Just came back from Europe 2 days ago from continuing that baseline data collection. There's also specific collection for the data. So no answers yet from this mission specifically, but when it comes to the study of the processes of how a loss of bone mass and muscular, I think we know some of that when it comes to space, or a lot of that when it comes to space exploration and how to do countermeasures, and that also, so that comes back a lot to medicine on Earth. But when it comes to effects of radiation and the effects of prolonged microgravity, that's where I think we need to learn a lot more. And a lot of things that I've learned now is actually that we can cope with a lot more, and we can actually countermeasure a lot more than I thought before entering this world and starting to learn about it. So it's great being a part of this process of building this knowledge.
Yeah, let me just pivot on that a little bit. I think, Marcus, you're right about having studied the bone and muscle loss. Obviously, there's a lot of conversation about the effect on vision through what's now called SANS. But I think what's interesting, and what we did a lot of in this mission, was studying things with an eye toward how they can affect humans on Earth. Looking at tumor organoids, looking at stem cells, looking at cognitive function. And I think those things, how those, especially stem cells and tumor organoids, react in microgravity, and how we can use the knowledge gained from that to help with therapeutics on the ground and maybe prevention someday. So I think it's interesting that we've been doing for many years now a lot of research on how to do longer duration flights in space, which continues to be very important, obviously, but also now what we can do more and more to help humans on Earth.
Yeah, and I want to tag on a little bit more there as well, because something that might not be obvious is that space travel is a tool where you get these accelerated reactions sometimes, where you can really study the things that might talk about, for instance, aging or how it affects our DNA, and you can get that in a very controlled environment just by going to space and back and then studying it before and after, and learn a lot that we really can't learn on Earth because we remove those factors and make it very controlled and accelerated. So it's really interesting to be a part of that. Yeah.
Thank you. We now have Ali Ortmaz.
I would like to ask to Alper Gezer Avcı, thank you for all efforts. I am proud of you, as all Turkish people. I am Ali Ortmaz for TRT News, TRT Haber, Turkish Radio Television. I have two questions. One question, what was the big challenge for you in this process, physically or emotionally? And second question, do you have any regret? I mean, I could do something extra, or I could prepare myself much better, or do you have a thing that forget? For example, if you had a chance to do it again, what would you like to change?
Ali Bey, hoş geldiniz. Thank you so much for your comments and your thoughts. And I was really so happy within the last 10 days to see this reflection that you have already put into the words back in Turkey. It was a great amount of excitement and really passion that people were reflecting upon to our hopes relating to the space-related endeavors that we will be just stepping into as the country. In terms of challenge relating to your first question, I can't really think of a moment, as Axiom Space has really given us a lot of insights under the lead of our commander, Michael López-Alegría. During the whole preparation process, I felt like we were really prepared so well, mentally, physically, and psychologically. So I didn't really feel any kind of difficulty in any of the stages up in the orbit. Second, yes, I have a regret, unfortunately. I wish I had a chance in my previous career and in my lifetime to get the chance to be able to learn one more language, which is Russian in this case. I will definitely encourage our future nations, future generations to learn not only a single, but at least two foreign languages for our future attempts in the space-related business. Thank you so much for your question again.
Thank you, Alper. We now have a question online from Matthew Kilbasa, so I'm going to go ahead and read it for all four of you. Can you elaborate on the current efforts and future developments in integrating such medical wearables capabilities into astronaut spacesuits or daily routines? And how can they contribute to proactive healthcare management during long-duration missions? Ole, we'll begin with you.
Sure. I mean, I think the wearable wave is definitely upon us, and we've taken a lot of steps to humans on Earth, I mean, to wear everything. And I'll throw out some names: Fitbit, Whoop, Aura, there's Apple Watch, there's all kinds of opportunities. And I think it's a wonderful tool to be able to kind of assess objectively how your body's doing and what your routine is, how it's affecting it. We did fly some wearables on orbit. First, I think it's more from a curiosity, self-satisfaction standpoint to take those same measurements and have the same analysis of what your body is and how much rest you're getting. You know, we don't do a lot of exercise in a short duration mission, probably not as much as we would like on Earth. Is that a factor? Maybe tease out the effects of microgravity. It's a little hard to tell. But I think in the future, because it's so easy to just have it on and not even think about it, I think there's a lot of data that could be mined there. Hey, you guys?
And
Yeah. If I may add, we had an experiment called Smart Flight Suit 2, because the first version we flew with the Virgin Galactic. And actually, it was an interesting concept. It's not just a matter of collecting data, which is always useful because you can monitor the status of the astronauts as well as other very specific population, fighter pilots or other professionals that are normally taking some activities in a harsh environment. But it's also a matter of developing new fabrics. So the point made by this small startup was trying to look at the new fabrics capable to collect directly some of these experiments, some of this data. So it's a matter of putting together kind of easy concept. So how to monitor the population, and of course, the more the population is getting old, and the more this kind of devices are useful to really monitor each of us. But then it's also a matter of getting on the table new fabrics, new technologies. For instance, one of the fabrics that we're developing was trying to have some T-shirt for normal workout. So when you can sweat, you can just simply hang out on the air and dry out the T-shirt without washing out. And if you think also the impact in terms of sustainability, even on the ground, some of these technologies can really have much wider applications, not only for astronauts.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. All right, we're now going to call on Per Olive Sainer, and he actually dropped his question in the chat, so I'll go ahead and read it, and this one's for Alper. Both members of Turkey's astronaut corps will have flown during 2024. Is it likely that astronauts from Turkey will fly again in the next few years? And if so, are there any details that you can share?
Thanks so much. This is also a very good question. As soon as I arrived in Turkey, within our very first day, we had a meeting with the Ministry of Industry and Technology relating to future plans of our space-related endeavors and attempts. So strong decisions have already been taken. We are already looking for further and future plans for the Turkish youth generations, including us, to carry out any other following space journeys, space missions, which will be contributing for the sustainability of our initial attempt and step into the space.
Thank you. All right, now we have a question for Marcus from Marcus Peterson. So how will the cooperation between LA, Walter, Alper, and you continue now after this mission to space? Will this lead to more collaborations between our countries in the future?
Thanks, Marcus. That's a great question. Right now, we're reconvening here, which feels great. So we can start talking again about our experiences and what we thought was good and what we can develop and how this was a way to for our countries and our organizations and agencies to go further. And I'm confident that we will have contact in the future and continue to be a part of developing this and moving the boundaries even further. And just seeing the different ways that our agencies and countries and companies have boldly made a difference or changed how to do things, how to achieve this access, have been very, very motivating and inspiring for us. I'm expecting us to keep that contact and keep discussing that in the future as well.
Great, thank you. All right, and this one's for Walter. What aspects on this mission do you think will inspire Italy, especially young Italians interested in going to space?
Well, that is, it's very important to vehiculate and to communicate to the young generation that space is not only a dream. It's not only a dream for a few people and a few astronauts that have the privilege to fly to space, but actually is for all of them really a concrete opportunity that they can pursue studying and, of course, getting a lot of effort in building up their background, their professional choices. So even during these few days after the mission, I've been in Italy and talking with many young people. And the main point is to see how much they are really inspired by the possibility of just flying to space. And the other point, very important, is that just astronauts are the tip of the iceberg. So there are so many other professionals that make the flights possible, from doctors to engineers. We are in an environment today in Axiom full of engineers building up the new space station. So there's a really big opportunity, and this is a fundamental not only for keep flying in the LEO Earth orbit, but also if we want to fly farther to the moon and then to Mars. So we need a new generation of new brilliant scientists capable to address and sort it out some of the problems that still need to be addressed. So the main point is really to use this opportunity to talk to the young generation and to inspire them, and actually they inspire us as well with their questions, with their actually enthusiasm. It's like of a twofold inspirational approach.
Great, thank you so much. And this one's for Alper. As the first Turkish astronaut to launch into space, what does historic milestone mean to you personally and for your country?
I'm focusing more into the impacts and the really symbolic meaning for the country. It is, I don't want to focus it to an individual accomplishment. That's really reflecting a big accomplishment, reflecting upon the whole nation, especially after such a devastating natural disaster that we experienced last year. It's really contributed to bring the people all together, and we have already seen the impact and the emotional effect on the whole nation over there. And that was also a remarkable moment that I would like to mention over here. Last year on the 29th of April, when we were announced publicly by our president to the whole Turkey, at the stage, while coming eye to eye with the people, I was really seeing that clear message from the eyes of the people. They were not only looking at a single individual over there at the stage, but they were really reflecting the feeling of an individual, a child from their family was there at the stage. So this is a mission which is incorporating the common will, the total will of the whole nation. So that is important in that manner.
This one's for Marcus. Can you describe a moment during the mission that you feel exemplifies the spirit of exploration and discovery for Sweden and Europe?
That symbolizes, or say that again?
Exemplifies.
Exemplifies.
The spirit of exploration.
There were several moments. First we did some science that was directly from Sweden, and it was involving how stem cells are affected and how you can use microgravity for that. And then we also did cognitive experiments and some to find a new environment, or use microgravity, for instance, to find new ways of doing things or utilizing things. That's innovation. And innovation has been a very strong thing in Sweden for a long time, and it's a knowledge-based, innovative country in general. So every time we did something a little bit different, actually throughout the whole process making this mission happen, I could feel the presence of an innovative country that wanted to do things in new ways, and finding new partnerships to do that with, and just making that happen. That's been very strong with me throughout the whole mission.
Great. Thank you so much. All right. Well, that's all we have time for today. Thank you, MLA, Walter, Alper, and Marcus, and congratulations on your successful mission to the International Space Station. While the flight operations for Ax-3 have came to a close, the research efforts and the opportunities to inspire the world will continue well into the future. For any follow-up questions on the Ax-3 mission, you can send them to media@axiomspace.com. And with that, we'll sign off saying adios, ciao, hoşça kal, and hado.